The following examples are used to illustrate the division of exponents properties. Also, we'll have to use some others. For instance, on this first one, we use the power product first, because we do x to the squared to the third, where we multiply exponents, and then we do x to the fourth, where we multiply exponents to x to the 16th. So we end up with x to the 6th over x to the 16th. Well, the division property of exponent says you go to the power that's bigger, and then you subtract the exponents. And it's got to be the same base. So since they're both x, that's why we're allowed to do this. So 16 minus 6 is 10, so that leaves us with 1 over x to the 10, because the 16 was in the denominator, so our x has to stay in the denominator. Okay, again, we're going to use the power of a power. We multiply everything by -2. That gives us x to the -6 over x to the -10. Well, a to the -6 has the bigger power, so -6 is where we go to. So we're going to do -6 minus a -10 all over 1. Well, -6 minus -10 is a positive 4. And then the a to the 4th, which is in the numerator, which we can get rid of and just write the denominator and write a to the 4th. Notice -6 is bigger than -10. That's why we did our calculations in the top. Now, the other way you could have done this problem, since the whole thing was to a certain power, was we could have simplified first to 1 over a squared, and then we would have had 1 over a to the -4th. Well, 1 over a to the -4th is the same as a to the 4th. Okay, on this problem, we do the same thing. Everything has to go to the second power. And so we have 2 squared, and then, well, actually what we're going to do is we're going to simplify first on this one. And so x to the 3rd over x to the 1st, well, we subtract 3 minus 1 to get x squared in the numerator. And then y to the 2nd over y to the 4th, well, we subtract in the denominator because 4 is bigger. Now we square everything, and we end up with 2 squared is 4, x squared to the 2nd is x to the 4th, because you multiply. Same thing on the bottom, you end up 9y to the 4th. And that is your solution. So that's a good example of where you would go ahead and go simplify first, and it can make it a lot easier if you go ahead and simplify first. All right, on 4, well, the best thing to do is to multiply across first. Well, when you multiply across, you add exponents. So we add x squared times x and get x to the 3rd, and then y to the 4th times y to the 6th, and you get y to the 10th. Remember, when you're multiplying, you add. When you're taking something to the power, you multiply. And so then on the bottom, we end up with 10, x to the 5th when we add, and then y when we multiply, because there's only the one y. Simplify 12 over 10 to 6 over 5. We subtract. The 5's bigger, so the x's get subtracted in the denominator. 5 minus 3 is 2, so you end up with x squared in the denominator. And then on the top, you end up with y 10 minus 1, which is 9, so y to the 9th. So your answer is 6y to the 9th over 5x squared.